Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Equestria Daily Fandom Podcast, back after a con and winter vacation. On this episode, we want to dive into having ponies inside of video games. Whether it be mods, official games, or fan-made games, we want to explore it all. I want to introduce my guests. We have Cups.
Hey there.
And Aquaman for this week.
I'm back again.
Yeah, we still haven't untied you. So the first question I have for you guys is, how is the vacation hiatus treating you? We'll start with Cups.
Not too bad. Visited family, visited friends. Had a nice Steven Universe Steven bomb. Looking forward to, I don't even know what's coming up next. What's coming up next, Aqua? What do you care about that's coming up soon?
What's coming up soon? I've been kind of chilling out myself, too. I haven't done much. Picked up, the only new game I've gotten was Halo 5 over Christmas, and also, just because it was cheap, I picked up FIFA 16. I was a 15 addict, and, well, shouldn't have spent money on it, but it was a good deal, and it was on sale more than Fallout 4 was. So that's all I've been doing in the video game market, so I'm clearly the best person to talk to about all of the PC stuff that I'm sure will be brought up.
Yeah, every single... So, Aqua, what do you think about the most recent Skyrim pony mod?
Oh, I remember Skyrim. I played it on console. Next question.
Oh, yeah, myself, I've been doing pretty well. I mean, the hiatus sucks as usual, but, you know, it gives you time to work on your own types of things. About to go back to college. Just got a part-time job, so just kind of going to be doing that, as well as this kind of stuff and EQD stuff as well. So the first
about Rocket League.
Oh, Rocket League, you got that?
Into Rocket League, and
hey guys, welcome to the first official Rocket League podcast.
Yes, just ranking system sucks. Just play regular games unless you're going to look at a group of 2 or 3 friends. Just forget about ranked. It's my opinion, professional opinion.
All right, there's your tips for the Rocket League podcast. I think we'll go back
Rocket
to
League deep strats.
Deep strats 420 no scope.
Hit balls in the air and make them go away from your goal into the other goal. Next week we'll talk about also hitting the ball away from your goal towards the enemy's goal.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
FIFA works too, except with a lot more shouting.
So I think that's it for the Rocket League podcast. Like, comment, and subscribe. No. So the second question that I actually have for you guys will kind of put the scope of the discussion that we're going to have for this hour is that what have been the types of pony games or mods that you have played, or like anything pony related? Because I know there's been official games, there's been, you know, fan-made games that people have made, there's been, you know, visual novels, which technically are kind of in the game area, as well as that VR demo that I saw at BronyCon for Fallout Equestria, I believe it was. So we'll start with Cups. What has been the whole pony game experience that you have had?
Oof. I remember, I think the very first big pony gaming thing was there's a total conversion mod for Terraria, where you, you know, you're pony walking around with like a floating mine pick next to you. I installed that for sure. They're back in the day, one of the very first RPG projects. I was actually a staff member on that. I was the head writer. I came up with the original storyline for it, which ended up being rolled together into like the first like 2D MMORPG that I believe got cease and desisted before there even was a playable version for the public. So all went away at the same time. That's long enough ago that I can't even remember the name of the project anymore. But I mean, I've fooled around with Skyrim mods, having like a giant pony flying around as the dragon, breathing ice breath on you, and then sadly taking it down and being like, "Why am I doing this? I don't want to kill giant frost breath Fluttershy for her soul," and then doing it anyway. Then changing it to Macho Man Randy Savage because that's clearly superior.
To be fair to the ponies, I mean, killing Macho Man Randy Savage is kind of the pinnacle of Skyrim life.
Yes. Oh yeah, I believe is the correct response.
I mean, on the other hand, Fluttershy having frost breath is pretty much canon. So,
yeah,
it's not just completely wrong.
It's just her passive aggression, but turned up a little bit. It's a metaphor.
Oh, I wasn't talking in metaphors. I was talking in literal ice breath, but that works too.
What about yourself, Aqua? Have you played any sort of pony game or mod or anything along those lines?
Not a whole lot of them, and part of it was just lack of ability. Until actually about a year ago now, I was working with a MacBook, pretty old one actually, so I couldn't even play the few games that worked for Mac really. So I wasn't in on any of the crowds that were getting in on the early stuff because I didn't have a rig of any kind that was capable of doing it. And also wasn't really my style of game as well, particularly even like fighting is magic. I've never really played many fighting games or been good at the ones I did try. Kind of similar thing with a lot of the other mods. I've never played Terraria. Never really had that whole PC gaming experience. Even now, I'm still kind of warming up to it. So I think the only game I've ever played in this fandom, like anything related to it, was somebody did a full conversion of, I think, Final Fantasy VI, which I'd also never played because I was kind of too young for it. Or I think it may have come out before, like right around when I was born. So I played a little bit of that. That was cool. It was sort of a conversion, sort of just the same game with different skins on. But it was a cool experience. I guess I played it for 2 hours in one sitting and then never really got back to it.
I heard that the Pony Fantasy VI was actually pretty well put together, despite being, this sort of fandom project. And from what I've played actually a decent amount of Pony stuff now that I think about it. There was a bunch of stuff that I just forgot that I remembered just now. I'm a fan of Dance Dance Revolution and Rock Band, and both of those had like their own types of pony mods and everything. I remember like 3 years ago, before I even knew you guys on EQD, they came out with ponified Rock Band songs, where it was like you had the Smile song and like just pretty much every pony song as well as the popular ones that were modded, and you could play them basically on your Rock Band game. And on a side note, we also had the Living Tombstones mix of Discord actually being put on the Xbox store. Mm-hmm. And I thought
it did get on there, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like Rock Band was huge though, and like I'm not saying this is an insult, like anything.
Yeah, no, it was just that was when it was the fad. Yeah, it's completely understandable.
That was like the cool thing about it was that anything could get on the store.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was kind of the thing, is that like if they thought that they could make money off of the DLC with it, and it's also their story is oddly selective because there were a lot of things that like you would think would be on there but just aren't because of like licensing issues or something like that.
Sure.
But with the pony mod and everything, like how that would work is like as long as you never updated the game, then you could basically turn it off of Xbox Live and just play a bunch of pony songs because they had some sort of update apparently that like broke all the mods. But that was really cool. It had like 60-ish songs, like a bunch of fandom songs that were really popular. Naturally, like the Odyssey Eurobeat songs are impossible. And the same goes with DDR. There's Trotmania.
Trotmania.
Yeah, as well as just a bunch of other like additions to it that are just all over the internet that I still need to do. Like, I want to get a metal DDR pad and just play those. Because they had that at BronyCon. They had like a makeshift DDR machine with like wooden panels and stuff, and it was actually really well put together. And I played one of my friends on it, and he like destroyed me because he actually had that and a mat at home, like a metal one. And I was really sad. So that's like my new goal, because a metal pad is like $700.
Ugh.
But I played a bunch of other games too. I played the Gameloft, the official MLP phone game, which we could talk about later. I know Seth was very critical of that game like a year ago when it came out.
I would air quotes that game.
That game, the
Skinner
one.
Box.
Yeah, the Skinner Box game. Like, how much? It's like you got to grind for like 600 days or something to get enough gems for a Princess Celestia or something like that. It's like pretty ridiculous.
She's not even the best princess.
Yeah, like Luna's like way cheaper. I don't even think I can't even remember. It was so long ago. But yeah, we'll just go into a quick like tangent about the Gameloft game.
And I left out Fighting is Magic, assuming we talk about it more later.
Yeah, it just there isn't really much to talk about the Gameloft game other than like it's just Skinner boxy and like I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of games that are like that even including like the most recent Fallout Shelter, that are just, I don't know, they either go full on the Skinner box theory or they try to differentiate themselves and just fail. And like
for our audience at home who might not know what a Skinner box is, basically it's one of those, you put a rat inside and you have them press a button to get a treat, and conditioning. And it's a situation where, like Cookie Clicker, there's no reward except for finishing it. All you're doing is going around your Ponyville town. You're making sure that each of your ponies have a task that they're working on that slowly generates you currency that can only be spent on specific things. Every day you log in to do your daily login thing. Maybe are there some things you can do more than once per day if you log in every 8 hours or something?
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it does the thing kind of that Farmville was infamous for, where the like lower level stuff refreshes, like you get bits or whatever, you get like the currency with the lower level stuff every like 30 seconds or something like that. But when you get to the higher levels and you get the higher level buildings and everything, those bits refresh every like 8 hours. And they've done like studies and news things. This was like a big thing like a year or two ago where they just did those on people who were like literally making alarms for when their stuff refreshes. Mm-hmm. So they'll make alarms for like an 8 hour building, or in like Farmville's case, the crop, and then they go do that and it just like, takes over their lives pretty much. And MLP, like the Gameloft game is not, I'm pretty sure it's not that destructive, but, it has basically the same capability to be just this endless Skinner box with no real reward.
I actually play Final Fantasy Record Keeper, which is a phone game that I always give the excuse of. It actually is a strategic Final Fantasy game. You pick 5 characters, you equip them with equipment, armor, accessory, abilities, and it requires, the highest level stuff requires strategic planning and actual execution. But it's also a stamina game, and I have a timer on my phone right now waiting to tell me that in an hour and 35 minutes it's time to play the game again.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do I sign up for this? Is there treatment? Is there a cure?
I mean, you just gotta uninstall the game, buddy. But that's kind of the thing.
Fill the space with something more, productive and more useful to your life, like cocaine.
Hearthstone dailies?
I mean, Hearthstone dailies only reset every 24 hours, so you need something to take control of the other 23 hours.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, the thing with the Skinner box mentality of these games is that, if you don't want to wait, you use gems, which cost money, and you can pretty much figure out how it works from there. And that, I think, was the thing that Seth was really critical about when he wrote an article about the game. He wrote like 2 articles about the game, actually, I remember, because he wrote an article when the game first came out, and then when it was updated, and when they like reduced all of the crystal prices, but it was still like a ridiculous cost. Because I remember Celestia was like 300 gems or something like that, and that's like $30 or something along those lines. Like, it was just a ridiculous cost just to get one pony out of like the 60 that are in there in the game. But
this was the only official My Little Pony game that's been out for who knows how long.
Yeah, like it's the only official MLP game if we don't count like board games or something. Like I have the MLP Monopoly and Life, actually, and those are just like, just basically skins. But, we don't really count those. And I guess the same thing goes for the Gameloft game. It's a Farmville skin. And
yeah, I feel like every freemium game is to some extent a Farmville skin.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of unfair to call it a Farmville skin because Farmville was never, to my knowledge, really monetized. Like, you didn't pay, or at least I was never aware of the huge culture of paying for things to go faster in Farmville. Then again, I never played it, so I'm basing this on all the invites I kept getting from other people I knew who did play it. But yeah, I never saw anything about, or anything close to what you could call freemium, which, again, defining it for those of you who may not know, it's a bit of a cynical term for that type of game where it's technically free, but if you want it to not suck, you're probably going to have to throw in a couple bucks. The one that I have the most familiarity with, since I haven't tried the Gameloft MLP game, is Two Dots. I don't know if any of you guys have tried that. It's another iPhone app. It's just a little puzzle thing. But it's one of the freemium games where it's not that there are dailies that are time-gated, but you only have so many turns before you're done for a certain period of time. So I think it's like it refreshes lives every 20 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. Well,
and so
Candy Crush, I think, would be the one that people would...
Yeah, it was kind of a Candy Crush model. That's a pretty good comparison.
Because, like, Candy Crush is just basically, like, you get 5 lives, and the maps are always random, so, like, there is no... It's literally impossible to finish all of the maps in one sitting. Like, it's literally, like, roulette and skill mixed in one. But, yeah, that's kind of the thing, is that... I don't know, this kind of leads into... One of the questions I wanted to ask is that, you know, we have all these games that we're kind of disappointed in, or at least we feel is kind of a, you know, cynical cash grab, because, like, with the Gameloft game, you know, you can you can give the phone to your kid and be like, oh, have fun, and then they accidentally spend, like, $100 on crystals. Yep. So, my actual question is that, we'll start with Aqua, is that what do you think would be like a definitive pony game? Like, let's say, big, huge leap of logic here, but let's assume that Hasbro wants to dump some money onto some studio or another for a game that they feel would be definitive of the My Little Pony experience. What do you think, like, what kind of genre would it be? What do you think, would it like go through all of the seasons, or would it try and be its own thing? Like, would it have the MLP writers? Like, I think it's a lot of questions, but we could probably just deconstruct it as we go.
This is going to seem like I'm fanboying a little bit, and first of all, I'm not, because I've never even played the games made by this company. Again, I had a deprived childhood in terms of video games. But all I can picture, and we've matured past this, I guess, as a video game consuming public, but all I can think of is like a Nintendo 64 era Rare title. So a little bit of platforming, a little bit of a collection mechanic, and something along those lines that isn't necessarily a graphical powerhouse, but it has a lot of interactivity and a lot of kid-friendly gameplay. Mm-hmm. So it's not as finicky about, you know, specifically where you land or what exactly you're doing. You can kind of just wander around and ignore stuff if you don't really want to pay attention to it, or if you're a very young kid playing it, you don't really get what's happening. I don't know if those games are made as much anymore, especially because with the new hardware, with how much, you know, graphical quality goes into a, you know, Xbox One or a PS4 game, let alone what the PCs are capable of. No one's really making those, I guess, platformers as much anymore. And there's a lot of good that's come out of that. We've definitely branched out in terms of other types of games, particularly the indie market has exploded in the last few years, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But the type of game that I immediately imagine would work centered around a kid show like this doesn't really get made anymore. And if it does get made, it's probably a third-party Nintendo game, which is a crapshoot of the highest caliber. So who knows whether that would get made or funded, or whether anyone would buy it, because who owns a Wii U? I don't.
I mean, I do, but I got it for Smash. That shows what...
Yeah, it's like you get it for first-party Nintendo stuff, but like, even if you do own a Wii U, you don't own any third-party titles. Because there aren't really any.
I mean, was the Gameloft MLP game advertised that much? I think I remember there being like one commercial for it, but I don't remember where, and I don't remember like what it entailed.
I wouldn't expect there would have been a lot of advertising, and I guess I'm sort of speaking ill of the benefactors here slightly, and I suppose it's not really an insult, but it's just a fact of reality. Mm-hmm. The whole fandom thing, the entire brony movement, if you want to be generous and call it that, was something that Hasbro stumbled into.
Yeah.
There was no, by any means, intentional plan for this to happen. So the fact that there is a mobile game, the fact that they're even considering these sort of things, happen because they're reacting to something that they weren't expecting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's no, I wouldn't imagine at least that there's any explicit plan on their part to, market to us, and there wasn't really any specific, thought process, focus group, anything like that. Thinking about, all right, if we're going to make a game, what's going to appeal specifically to the audience that we have? I think what happened instead was it was probably something a little bit more reactionary, where they realized they had this market, weren't really sure what to do with it, and so kind of based it on pre-existing games. So we had that kind of Farmville-y freemium mechanic instead of a fully thought-out game because it was a little bit unprecedented.
Well, it's also safe.
Yeah, well, that was what I was leading up to. It's a safe choice because it's worked a million times, and it's a very basic. The Cups used the phrase Skinner box, and I would use the phrase addiction simulator, because that's effectively what it is. When you're talking about the things that reset daily, when you're setting a timer for it, when you're waiting for this moment when you can play it again, even if it's just for a little bit of time, it's essentially simulating and, to a little bit of a degree, I think actually creating a chemical addiction. So, like, even if you're not, desperate for it, even if you're not, committing questionable acts in a back alley for another few gems,
Jesus Christ,
you're still focused on it to the point that it's a thought that's in your head automatically. It's like, 4 hours have passed, I could go play another few rounds of Two Dots or Candy Crush or whatever game you're particularly interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the mechanic that they know works, and
if you
that's
forget,
where I imagine this game came from.
If you somehow forget, you'll get an alert from your phone every, half a day reminding you.
Oh my god, yeah, no. Trivia Crack? I just deleted Trivia Crack from my phone because I was addicted to it for about a month or so when it was popular about a year ago. And I don't know what they updated, but it literally texts you like a rejected creepy ex. It'll literally send you messages like, I miss you. Come back. I know it's been a while, but I'm still here. I'm still worth something. I shot your dog. Where the fuck are you? It goes kind of insane. And it's the most aggressive, little update thing I've ever seen from a game. It's completely ridiculous. But, that's the kind of thing that's kind of relationship that these games are fostering, and that's exactly what they want, because they want it to be this somewhat possessive relationship where you're feeding money into it and you don't even realize how much you're spending.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
The logic is always, I'll go back to the Two Dots example. I think it was 99 cents if you wanted to buy some more lives one time. And the game was really good at getting you really close to finishing a level, but not quite getting there.
Yeah.
You need maybe one or two moves, and it's 99 cents, 5 more moves. Okay, I'll just do it this one time. You play the game for 6 months, and all of a sudden you've spent $40 on it because you've spent 99 cents 40 times.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a logic to these games, and that's why they're successful. It's kind of the same way why originally when pop-up ads started to appear, they appeared because they worked. Because people weren't suspicious of it. They weren't aware of the psychology behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are starting to be more aware of that, at least in our circle of consumers. But in the general wide sense, it still works pretty well. So that's where I would honestly expect the game to keep going. Because, again, it's still kind of a dark zone that they're floating through. They still don't really have anything to base our behavior off of. Well, so they probably just stick with what works.
For Cups, did you have any sort of different type of definitive pony game besides the Banjo-Kazooie ukulele example that Aqua mentioned?
Well, I actually wanted to help him follow up on that by saying that I kind of think that I hate to say dumbed down, because that's not really the phrase I mean, but a less intricate version of what he's talking about still gets made in the form of the Lego adventure games. And maybe, Skylanders, Lego Dimensions, stuff like that. Kind of feels like that, but definitely more theme parky, linear, less about exploring a world full of new experiences, since since they have so much to hit you with that you're already familiar with, that they don't have to really give you new experiences. They have to make you feel like, oh yeah, I like that joke in the movie. The Hulk is always angry. That's his secret. here's the Hulk. He's angry.
Uh-huh.
Yay. So,
Well, the brilliant thing about those games, because you mentioned Skylanders, Lego Dimensions, Disney Infinity, and even the Amiibos on the Wii U, all of these things are combining merchandising with video games. They finally figured out how to do it. So in order to play the game to its full capacity, you got to buy all the little minifigures and plug them in and collect all of them.
and that's
and
definitely
it's
where I was going.
diabolical plan that I can't really hate on. Because I'm a marketing major, so
yes, you admire the ability.
As much as I would ever be personally offended by stuff, there's always a part of me that says, okay, that also is pretty brilliant. Because you're selling a package that's, piece by piece by piece, 99 cents at a time, one day at a time. And that's how you make money now, because you can't overtly advertise to people anymore, because people wised up to it.
I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised if Hasbro is currently working on their own competitor that uses Transformers and G.I. Joes and My Little Pony and Gem and the Holograms all in the same world, fighting. I don't care what they're fighting. Fighting the Changelings. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, right. But, I wouldn't be surprised. It obviously works, and they have the draw.
So when it comes to the Skylanders type thing, obviously we'd be able to just throw Pony right in there. I mean, this is assuming that that's Disney Infinity, but this is assuming that they want to basically buddy up for Pony Skylanders. I think that would probably have to be a different game though.
Well, that's what I was saying. I wouldn't be surprised if Hasbro wasn't making a Hasbro Homeworld. I don't care what it's called, and it's in and of itself. You with Lego, the way it works, I don't know if any of you have seen it yet. It's you get the base set, and you have a Lego flat platform. You put built Lego vehicles or characters or whatever onto there, and it registers them into the game in real time, kind of like registering an amiibo. And buy more sets, buy $1,400 worth of expansions, and you too can visit every single Lego set they have now until more come out 9 months from now. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Hasbro Homeworld was coming out in 6 months or something.
Yeah, that's what I would expect more than an individual MLP game. If it was going to be a full console thing, it would be incorporating a lot of different Hasbro properties.
Of course, that doesn't actually answer your question of what would I actually want to be a... Well, I don't know. Your question was, what would a definitive MLP game... Or do you care what we would want an MLP game to be?
Well, that could be the next question. Definitive as in, it captures the experience of either the show or what it has sort of... Because, obviously the experience of what it is to other people is completely different. All of us have different experiences by what this does. Yeah. But if we were to, just assume that they want to make a video game based on the show, just the show, not any sort of introduction into, all of the other properties or big, huge compilation. Let's say they want to make MLP Friendship is Magic, the game. Would it be like the Spider-Man games where you just go through all the episodes? Would it be its own individual type thing, like the comics? What sort of experience do you think the game would consist of?
Yeah, because there's the Naruto games and the One Piece games and all those where basically all of them, you sit down and you play them, and you start from somewhere near the beginning or at the beginning, and you rush through all the content you've already played through in previous games or you saw 5 years ago on the show, and then it stretches out the latest arc or the latest year of episodes into this, into the last 8-10 hours of gameplay. So yeah, you definitely could have it be this thing where you're reliving seasons 1 through 5. I don't know if that's... It's an interesting question. I personally would strongly prefer an original story. It's not like all the best writers on MLP are always constantly busy with projects. I'm sure at least one of them could spare some time to write what's the equivalent of a 3-hour episode interspersed with gameplay between the text, the speech.
Yeah, that is completely understandable. Do you have something to say, Aqua?
Yeah, I was actually going to go back to the example that Cups brought up, which was the Lego games. particularly like the older Lego platformers, so like Lego Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all those kind of themed ones. That's actually pretty close to what I could see the definitive game looking like. Something along, so it incorporates a little bit of the platforming into it. It's a very cartoonish, very kid-centric and kid-friendly atmosphere that at the same time adults can jump into because it's the same traditional platforming they're used to. And I also particularly liked about the Lego games that there was incorporation of the, drop in, drop out, I should say, co-op characters, even if you didn't have a co-op partner. So you could swap between the two guys you had on screen, and depending on who they were, which characters they were, they had different abilities or they could go to different places. I know in the Star Wars games, you had the Jedi who could use the Force and move stuff around. Different characters had blasters or lightsabers or anything of the sort, or could jump higher even, and they could get to different areas and find different stuff. So that kind of switching between characters and having characters with different abilities, what I figure would also factor in, just given the themes of the show and the disparities between the characters. So something very similar to that would be what I would imagine the game would look like.
So just kind of you have all of these little mini experiences and adventures, and they kind of like teach you lessons, but at the same time, would you be one of the characters, or would you be like an original character? Because I think that I think it'd be easier.
You definitely have like a create a character mode.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
The Star Wars games had those, the Lego Star Wars games. You would probably have different things that a unicorn could do versus a Pegasus versus an Earth Pony versus the different individual characters. And I know one of the cool things that Lego Star Wars games did was once you beat a level for the first time with the characters that you had to go through it with, so you would go through it originally with the characters that were actually in the equivalent movie scene. Later you could go back and just build a roster of characters. So it would work well with the huge, I guess...
Yeah, the cast that MLP has.
That it has. And slot them all in with different abilities and the ability to switch back and forth between them and get to different areas. So you would be able to kind of ape off the original episodes. You wouldn't have to write this completely new story. But at the same time, you could go a lot deeper into each environment. Mm-hmm. So rather than following the linear path, which there is a linear way you have to progress through the level / episode. You could also explore around with different characters, see stuff, have little Easter eggs. And you don't have to bother with voice actors, because that was another cool thing about the Lego games, is they just grunted and yelled.
I mean, you could probably just have them or use the grunts and yells that have been throughout the show, or just get them all in, have them all record for like 5 seconds. Because, I mean, recording booths, they charge by the hour, so if you can get like all the VAs to just come in and do like a few seconds, you can probably get like all the characters done within the hour.
How much does Tara Strong charge by the minute?
I have no idea. Probably a lot.
Let's figure that out.
Cups, let's talk about Fighting is Magic. So, apart from it sucking, obviously, that it was cease and desisted, I talked with a friend of mine who plays like pretty much every fighting game, pretty versed in them. He actually helped make he helped balance the Tribute Edition. And did you feel that it was kind of a really good, pony game? I mean, we only had like 30% of what the game was going to be, obviously. There was no story, there was only 4 to 6 characters when it was cease and desisted. But, do you feel like it would have been a good representation, or at least a good type of game that would have worked for what we were trying to go for? Because, I mean, obviously it's kind of weird nowadays, because the defense that I saw for it being cease and desisted a while back was like, it just feels weird to have all these ponies fighting, and now we have like the season 5 finale, and that is feeling like less and less apt, but time comparisons can't even compare them. But just what do you think, Cups? Do you think it would have been a good game, just in general?
Well, I think it was cease and desisted because money became involved. The whole thing with it being an Evo and...
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the people that were defending the cease and desist, like, along with the money thing, they were saying, like, it just feels weird.
So, obviously the idea of Applejack is going to go over and try to kick Fluttershy in the head to knock her unconscious and win the match is, from a basic standpoint, is anathema to the themes of the show. I mean, how many times in the history of the show has, the brute force power of one of the characters been the thing that solved a problem?
Not only that, but a problem that one of the other main cast members have solved.
Right.
Or
So,
started.
If you take that out, if you just take it as, it's cartoony fun, and just wait for the story mode to come out, someday the story mode will explain why they're having a ruckus, which, Main Six said that the story mode would explain, at least circumspectly explain why they're duking it out.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, the feeling of the game, the quotes, the moves chosen, I don't know, just overall, my personal feeling as a person who's very analytical and critical of how fan works utilize characterization and the spirit of the show, I'm surprisingly more than okay with it. It helps that the music was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a, air quotes, pony game, for us, for adult fans, I say that it's good. It was good. It was going in the right direction. It picked its genre.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
within its genre without being, I don't know, there's not much way you can neuter a fighting game to be more gentle.
Yeah, not really. And along with that, fighting game stories aren't really... it's kind of been considered to be... what's that word? An oxymoron? Because, especially with, Injustice, there's technically a story, but no one cares. Or, the Mortal Kombat games. People just fight, and then the story keeps going, and they just keep fighting as characters until you've played all the characters. So...
I feel like the story for Injustice was just there to explain why, the Joker could fight Superman on even grounds.
Yeah.
They all ran around, they got nanite injections. Okay, now the Joker can kill Superman with a pie to the face. Go.
Yeah, not only that, but just there's kind of a tongue-in-cheek way when you're making those games, because you worry more about, frame rates and canceling and guards and, the stuff that... You worry more about the gameplay. Because, I'm pretty sure there's been a lot of game reviewers and stuff that have been like, hey, the story was good, but the gameplay is terrible. But if it's, the other way around, it's not as much of a poison to the game.
I don't feel like people focus on story over gameplay for the most part, though, just in the general video game market. It doesn't translate into, better, popularity, maybe better critical reviews. But one example is, I think BioShock Infinite qualifies as maybe story took precedence over gameplay in certain aspects. Mm-hmm. And I say this as a complete, unabashed Ken Levine fanboy. But it's something that really appealed to me because that's the kind of thing I look for in games, is a really good story technically over the best gameplay or the most original gameplay. But I know a lot of people don't feel the same way. They would much rather have newer or better gameplay than, strictly speaking, a non-cliche or non-sucky story. So, in general, I don't feel like the audience for games prioritizes story over gameplay.
Uh-huh. Well, that's kind of the thing about media in general, though, is that you're capable of picking and choosing what you want to be your preferred medium style. You can tune into games that have more gameplay than story. Rock Band, DDR, all of those games don't have a story at all. They say they do, but it's not really the type of story that could be applicable to something like the BioShock games. Or, MMOs technically have a story, but you're doing a bunch of quests to do stuff. And, just stuff like that. And the same thing goes with, fanfics. You and I, we've written stories all around the place, and... depending on how we conveyed the story, people like this way or that way or the other. It's just kind of how you do things, and people want that type of thing. How specific that was.
Mm-hmm.
Having strong characters is a huge way. I don't want to say get around having a great story, but great characters in a decent story is going to be more memorable most of the time than okay characters in a great story. So, I mean, that's part of why fanfiction is, it continues to be and forever will be a thing. Like, we already love X, Y, and Z character, pony, gem, etc. So we're going to create these situations the characters are in, and we're already on the same starting point. So you take something like Skyrim, for example. I don't think there's a lot of people that would tell you that Skyrim has a great story. But if you play it enough that you get into it and you have some characters in there that you know, and you run into those characters again, you see them fighting at a meeting, whatever. Tangent.
Yeah.
The point is that a game like this could just relive previous episodes, or it could be new material. As long as the character is represented strongly, then I think the majority of players will be invested.
Yeah, pretty much. And that was kind of the thing with Fighting is Magic, is that their fighting styles and just their end sentences were pretty much spot on to their characters. I mean, even though you had to take out that sense of disbelief where, like, oh, they're fighting, they would never be fighting. But, like, once that's gone, even though that being, like, a big thing, then, you're kind of just like, okay, that's a really cool conveyance. We're going to go to questions right now. We're actually going to rapid fire a few of these. Who knows do either of you know what Harvest Moon is?
Yes.
I have heard of it, yeah.
Okay, so Cups, someone asks, a Harvest Moon kind of game where you live a peaceful life in Ponyville, make some friends, get a waifu, create a family, the whole thing. Invest
How much do
hundreds.
gems cost?
Just make it a hybrid Harvest Moon Animal Crossing game in Ponyville. You'll sell a million zillion copies. Next question.
How awesome would it be if BioWare did a My Little Pony Friendships Magic game? In parentheses, you already know the answer. Aqua. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, the answer is the Reapers are coming.
Oh my goodness. Let's see.
Yeah, there's
Did
a
either
particularly
you
harrowing
play-
scene at the beginning of the game where you have to rescue Applebloom from a venting duct.
Is
And then
that
it
is
sucks.
that theoretical, or did that happen somewhere? I'm so confused.
No, I'm referencing Mass Effect 3.
Oh. I didn't play that. Favorite original? Borderlands got some. Here's a crazy idea. An MLP Equestria Girls game, kind of like Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, but it's a crossover between MLP and Equestria Girls. That would be a little interesting. You go back and forth between the worlds.
Yeah, I guess it would be kind of a cool mechanic. I guess the mechanic I'm imagining is it's literally like you can transition between levels, like between worlds. So within the same level, you switch from being a horse to being a human and back again. That might be kind of cool.
Like that one game, what's it called? A Link Between Worlds? Zelda? Like one of the Zelda games?
Yeah, kind of like that. I could see it happening.
I don't know. I enjoy the Equestria Girls movies, and if it ended up being Sunset Shimmer the game, then I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
I would
But,
definitely pay money for that.
I'm pretty sure the majority of fans, the adult, children, everyone, would prefer just to, first real game, just keep it with the ponies before we get complicated.
Equestria Girls makes it complicated, according to you, Cups?
Oh, yeah, it's Facebook status complicated, just, yes.
Once you add hands, it all goes to hell.
Yeah.
What about a Phoenix Wright style MLP game? I agree.
There was already a fan project that was...
Turnabout Storm.
Yeah.
That's a visual novel, though. I think it'd be a little... Is it? Is it a visual novel, or is it a game? I forget.
That is a very fair question. I've never played any Phoenix Wright games, which I feel is a personal... I need to repair that. I feel
It's a sin. Yeah, I feel...
Welcome to the We Don't Play Video Games podcast.
Yeah.
It's about video games.
Let's introduce our panel. Yeah, I think Phoenix Wright would be really interesting. Just have it be Pinky. Like from Mystery on the Friendship Express. That'd be a boatload of fun. And, Twilight is the assistant.
How many hours could we get out of that episode?
How many what?
How many hours of gameplay could we get out of that episode?
I mean...
25 hours of immersive content, all in that train.
Just look. I mean, you could probably make like a 2-hour game or something like that if it was like, oh, I wanted to bring this up. Text-based adventure games. I mean, those are kind of dead nowadays, but I think that would be really interesting to have.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about obsolete games, though.
There's some tools online that people have made to like make your own relatively easily, either like web integrated or a standalone software. And I've looked into it. I've been curious about doing it, but then I got like all lofty. I started thinking about like, okay, so now what if it was more than just this? What if it was one of those RPG choose your own adventure text adventure games where there's stats? And then what if you added like a timer and you only had a certain number of actions before? But then what if you And I went a little overboard.
It just all goes to hell once you add too much.
Yeah, and then I never even got started, and then I moved on. So, lesson learned: don't try to make anything; you'll just start crying.
Wow.
Don't create, just exist.
Yeah, just exist and hate yourself and never make anything, and then you'll be all three of us.
But I would there were some great choose your own adventure stuff that's been made by fanfics and other stuff that's been made by fans. What was the very first one was the Carrot Top one that was great.
Oh, the one that Chris made, the Purloin Pony, I think.
Yeah, the Purloin Pony. And what is that really horrible one that recently got a game?
Brony Hero of Equestria.
Yeah,
I personally know both of the people.
That book. That book's amazing.
I use horrible in air quotes. I use horrible lovingly. Terrifying and despicable lovingly.
We gotta do a video chat next time so we can see you doing the quotation marks next to your head.
No. Yes. No.
I mean, one of these days we can try and do a video podcast, but I don't know how anyone else would feel about it. I'll ask. What kind of games would you like to see a pony mod for? Aqua.
FIFA. No. Please, God. I guess it already technically exists with PES, the one that the 4chan Cup uses, because they mod the hell out of that one.
Oh, so they mod FIFA with Pony?
If I wanted it. Well, no, there's the other one, Project Evolution. I think Project Evolution Soccer, I think is what the acronym stand for. I know it's PES, but that's what the 4chan Cup uses, and they just mod the hell out of it for their different characters, and know at least one of them on /MLP's team is an actual horse. So, yeah, that's a good question, though. Again, I don't have that PC background, so the whole modding thing is kind of foreign to me in general.
Well, let's say that you could mod something on the console. Because, I mean, you can. It's possible to do that. I mean, they modded, like, the Rock Band games, and those are all console games, pretty much.
Can we please do Rocket League? Just running around.
Just add manes and tails and horns and wings and...
Yeah, just put it
in the cars.
Jet propulsion is just shooting out of their ass. They spread their wings and fly into the air. Yes, please.
Oh my god. If I were to choose, it'd probably be something pretty simplistic, like World of Warcraft or something. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone wants this, because, like, Seth's been saying this for, like, years, but we need, like, a really good MMO again. WoW's just kind of...
Your definition of simplistic is World of Warcraft.
Well, it is, at least as far as games are concerned when I play them. World of Warcraft is just a really simplistic game. Especially when you go into, like, raiding and everything. Like, that stuff is really not that hard.
Yeah, why can't we just mod a really easy, straightforward game like EVE Online?
I mean, because you wouldn't even notice the mods with all the numbers everywhere. So
get a spreadsheet skin for Excel ponies. Done.
We have a question here called, will they ever make an MLP FIM Nintendo 3DS game? Not for the 3DS, is my answer. Like, if they were to make it, we've already kind of touched upon this in the previous when we were saying, like, what would be the definitive pony game. But if they were to make a game, I don't think it would be for the 3DS.
If they did make the one for the Wii U, maybe there would be a 3DS version.
Mm-hmm. Or the...
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I think if they were to make a game, they would make it for the new console. But we wouldn't know until, like, 3 years after the new Nintendo console comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if any 3DS Pony game comes out, it hasn't been announced yet, which means it probably will come out so quickly before the 3DS is gone that it's just going to be like a cheap cash-in quickie game that at best would be like a 2D platformer that's not awful, just because of timing.
Yeah, because, I mean, you kind of need, as far as Hasbro is concerned, you probably need a little bit extra time in order to make that sort of game, especially since they're working on the movie. And it's just, I don't think it'd be... Do you think they'd make a game about the movie? I don't think so.
Now that you say that, maybe?
Yeah, because that's the thing, is like the movie is kind of the best time to make the game. Like if they were to make a game, the movie would be...
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends on what their purpose for the movie is. And I don't mean to say this to scare anyone, I'm just talking about an established precedent in terms of what's happened before. But the SpongeBob movie, which I assume a lot of people have seen, it's pretty great. Everyone likes it. But when that movie came out, that was supposed to be the finale of the show.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's the plan for MLP. I don't know why it would be. I can't think of a reason why they would want to end it there, given that it's still doing well.
Mm-hmm.
But if that is in fact the plan, which again I have no way of knowing if it is or why it would be, maybe they wouldn't want to go with a game if they're really going to just quit on, not the brand by any means, but maybe just this generation of it.
Yeah,
might move on to Gen 5 after that. Maybe during Gen 5 we might see a game, but...
I think Fee mentioned a few podcasts ago where she said that around either after the movie or during this coming season would be the best time for them to start thinking about when they want to end the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's kind of a good send-off, perhaps. Maybe they're thinking about, just sending it off with the package, have a movie, have a game coming out based on the movie, and then maybe one more season of Pony, and then... Mm-hmm. Welcome to the Doomsayers podcast, and then the show is over, guys. Pack up, go home. Yeah. Seth needs a job.
We should clarify that the show being over in its current incarnation doesn't mean the brand's dead.
Yeah.
Like, when we say it's ending, it may just mean that it's ending in its current form, that this current generation is ending. There could be a Gen 4.5.
Yeah.
We could skip right into 5. It could pick up right where the old one left off. I could honestly see us just leaving the Twilight and the gang behind, and then instead just getting a new cast. It's set in the same world. Maybe those characters show up occasionally. Mm-hmm. Maybe they just need to get Tara Strong off the payroll before she bankrupts the whole studio. But... yeah, so the end of the show doesn't necessarily mean, the end of the world, so to speak. It could just be a new incarnation of the world, because I wouldn't think they would want to end the world, given how well it's been doing.
Well, it's the end of my world. This show is over. What will I do, Aqua?
I mean, okay, if you and Hero, fine. But for the rest of us, we'll keep keeping on, and we'll be okay.
I mean, to be a sparkling ray of light here, it costs a lot of money to make and market a movie, so it momentum-wise, or as I like to call it, money-mentum-wise, the best idea from my perspective, is to have a movie come out and then have at least one season after the movie. If you just end with the movie and then you don't have something to bring the kids back to watching the television show and then watching the commercials for your other products during the television show, then I don't know. The movie only accomplished half of what you're going for. So I would say anyone who's doomsaying that the show is going to be over at the end of the movie, I think I would bet $20. Nope, at least one more season after that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to end with the movie either. I mean, people could probably hold us to this, but that's just how. Especially when you have the movie going into theaters. And it's going to be seen by a bunch of people. You're going to have a bunch of people that are going to be coming out of that movie who the movie is their first step into Pony, and they're like, oh, let's watch some more, and then they find out that the show's over. So
full of grown men watching it.
Yeah, and Hasbro just has this big, huge, basically untapped market, for lack of a better word, that just shows up, and all of a sudden, oh, the show's over. What do we have to give them? And it's nothing except the movie. Like, I don't know. The way that you're putting it, it does make sense. But I'm
On the
not...
other hand, now that you say that, what if it is the end of Gen 4 and we do transition into Gen 4.5 because we want the people who see the movie to have something that feels new for the new audience to come in and watch? Dun, dun, dun.
Or what if the movie itself is the start of Gen 4.5?
Yeah, they just don't tell us.
Or they tell us like way too late when we've already pre-ordered the tickets.
By the way, what was that game?
Love is dead.
What was that game that was like they like faked trailers and everything? And like what if they did that with Pony, where they were like, oh, it's going to be Generation 4, and then we like pre-order the tickets, and then we go in the movie theater, and then it's like Generation 5, all new characters.
I feel like you're talking about Destiny, when like the original trailers look nothing like the actual game.
No, it was like an Aliens game.
Oh, that
Colonial Marines. That's what it was.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, like
dumpster fire.
What if they just did that with the movie? Like everyone like pre-orders tickets.
What, they just made a dumpster fire?
Well,
you can do that pretty cheap right now.
I mean, they did that with What About Discord, but like, what if they were to do that with an actual movie where they were just like, oh, it's Generation 4, it's gonna be the best ever, and then like they send us at EQD, like they send us stuff where it's just like, oh, the movie's gonna be amazing, and then we all like pre-order, and then we go sit down, and it's like Generation 5, and Larson just giving us the finger the entire time. He's like, oh,
I think Larson would be involved.
Yeah.
Possibly not. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm not saying he wouldn't be, but I think it's a different team on the movie. Just injecting some realism into the flight of fantasy here for a second.
I mean, we got rid of fantasy the moment we started talking about pony games. So you're being a real fun ruiner, Aqua. I just want to let you know.
When we all play the Little Pony, the movie Equestria Girls Link Between Worlds game that comes out next year, then we'll know what the movie's about.
That's true. Yeah. When that gets released, we'll definitely cover it here on Equestria Daily.
Excellent.
So I actually had a few questions regarding just us, and we'll ask other people as well, but I want to ask you guys. What's the most money you've spent in the Artist Alley at a convention, Brony and non-Brony? Start with Aqua.
Well, it would have to just be the MLP one, because I've actually never been to a different kind of convention. I would love to go to like Comic-Con or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I think it was something, it was not triple figures, I don't think. Maybe the first one I went to, I bought a plush for my SO at the time, and then maybe I went into about $30 worth of other stuff, but I don't think I've ever broken 3 digits. Mm-hmm. Gotten close. But for the most part, I kept relatively calm. Primarily because I don't buy a lot of prints or posters or anything like that would be like visibly displayed. Mm-hmm. So like it's only every once in a while I would actually get something of substance. Like I bought the entire Secret Chippic folder game because I still think it's hilarious.
It's a pretty good game.
That's pretty much the biggest purchase I've ever made.
What do you think, Cups?
It's not a great game. I just think it's funny. As far as like actual gameplay goes, not the best. But it doesn't need to be because I love it.
That's odd. You and Fee feel the same way about that game.
I knew you called it a good game, and I could hear Cups like fuming through the connection here.
Oh wait, Cups, you hate that game too? I didn't know that, or I forgot.
I wouldn't say I hate it, but as a game, it's just a drinking game to me. Like I'd rather play Munchkin, and I hate Munchkin, so I guess that's not fair. It's just because Munchkin. No, I don't know. I'm out of words that don't involve me saying that I hate Chipfic folder, which I don't actually hate it.
I think a good indication of how we feel is that I won a Chipfic folder game in one hand, and then the game that we played immediately after took 2 hours. I think that's kind of indicative of the game.
Yeah.
Is because I had like exactly the 7 cards that I needed. And like I had card draw, and I had like the rolls were exactly what I needed them to be, and I just won in one turn once it came to me.
I have a weird relationship with board games, card games, with like getting an emotional investment. Like if it's going to take longer than like a half an hour to play, I want to feel like the person who won the game with skill,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that that's a very skill-based game. I think you can make skillful decisions, and then that won't help you win or lose most of the time anyway, especially the more players there are.
So you don't play Hearthstone?
So I used to.
Okay, but back to the question. Most money you've spent in an artist alley?
Maybe like 120, 150. I have a small. I have a waning addiction to buttons.
Yeah.
I can send you a picture of that was my button collection from a couple years ago. You can append to this post. It filled a kitchen dining room table.
Oh my god.
But,
yeah, if you could send it to me, I'll put it up. But I think, do charity auctions count? Are we going to count them? Because if so,
Yeah,
I have.
I mean, you spent that money at a convention.
Yeah, at a convention. Okay, so it's story time. So my first year of Pony, I went to Equestria LA 2012, and I dropped $2,000 on the charity auction.
Nice.
And what I got, so they were auctioning off like this promotional Pinkie Pie poster that was used in Build-A-Bear. So it's like you can't get it anywhere, from what I was told.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing was like a shirt from Unicon that was signed by the con that shall not be named. That was signed by Amy Keating Rogers. So I got like 4 things for $2,000, but one of the things was like $1,000 and the other was like $800, and then the other 2 things were like $200 put together. So I spent like $1,000 on the Pinkie poster alone. And this was back when I like knew no one, and I just had a bunch of money because I was just working before I got into the fandom. Like I was just doing full-time hours at like 17 and a half or like 18 and a half around there, just making a boatload of money. And now I'm in college and broke. So there's my story. This is Artist
I'll
Alley.
teach you to donate to charity.
Yeah, right? If I didn't donate to charity, I'd be rich right now, and then I'd be Trump. I don't know.
Remember, kids, don't donate to charity and don't create.
Yeah, don't spread friendship because it is not magic.
Yeah.
Play video games, but don't make video games.
I do actually have a story about the most money I've ever heard of anyone spending at a convention, or specifically regarding this fandom. When I went to Everfree in 2014 up in Seattle, I actually ended up hanging out with Dusty Cat for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Completely by coincidence. We just met at the convention. I'd never met him before. Cool guy. I think I talked to Screwball a little bit too, his partner on the radio show.
Mm-hmm.
But the way things ended up falling out, we ended up going out to, I think, a Red Robin or a Ruby Tuesdays or something with Michael Dobson, who was the voice actor behind Bulk Biceps and I think a couple other minor characters. Also a really cool guy. I got to interview him for EQD. I think that it was a little 10-minute thing, went up a couple years ago. But we all ended up at the restaurant together. So we're all talking there. I'm sitting across from Dusty Cat, hearing all the stories about who he's met in the convention hall. And at some point, it's brought up that the charity auction was done, and there was some quilt, I think, and I don't remember who made it. Just a quilt of a bunch of different characters put together. It was a cool little thing. And the news eventually broke that someone had spent $20,000
Oh my god.
on that quilt for the sake of donating it. So we're talking about, like, we're all that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. We spent $20,000 on one thing. And we're there with one of Dusty's friends. Pretty unassuming looking guy, a bit older than the crowd that was there, but, not in his 60s, maybe like 30s, 40s. But we've been talking to him casually the whole night, nothing out of the ordinary. This story comes up, we mentioned $20,000, and he pipes up and goes, "Oh yeah, that was me." So this guy had $20,000, and I still don't know who he was, to just throw at this quilt, and then he ended up paying for all our dinners.
Oh my god.
So I have no idea who that guy is, but I was a benefactor of the bags of money he had locked in a vault under his house.
That's a pretty good story.
So if we ever get a background horse version of Scrooge McDuck, I'm just going to point him out. I know him.
I mean,
Took me to Red Robin.
If he's listening to this podcast and he doesn't mind, throwing a few dollars.
Yeah, that was cool. It was really cool meeting you, whoever you were.
Yeah.
The quilt is actually on EQD. We'll maybe post a link to that with the podcast.
I'm sure we talked about it at the time. I think we did go up on the blog that somebody dropped 20 grand on it.
Yep.
But it was kind of ridiculous at the time, and I unintentionally ended up at the same Red Robin or whatever with them.
All right, so the final question that I will ask you guys before we wrap up, I'm going to actually integrate the poll question that we have. So the poll question is, how would you want Hasbro to handle a Generation 5 MLP? And the choices are direct sequel with the same characters in the same world picking up after wherever G4 left off, or a prequel series with a different cast before modern Equestria, maybe Celestia Luna's old era, all new characters, all new world, another choice, future Equestria with new main cast, older main six, and concepts might make cameos, rebirth the current show, keeping Equestria and the characters we know but forging a new continuity, aka Star Trek style reboot, or current characters in a new world but staying ponies, or keep the familiar names but reinvent the characters in history, kind of like this one.
I would much more favor, rather than a total blind reset or continuing with the same characters, I guess kind of a Legend of Korra type continuation where you go a really significant length of time down the road and maybe you end up with a different cast of characters taking on the elements, or maybe there's, the original characters in some kind of mentor capacity, or you just end up coming across them like living their lives, and you come out 40 years later to Rainbow Dash already retired from the Wonderbolts or something like that. Like Rarity's like the big name in fashion, whatever. That would be the kind of look into the future I would love to see in Gen 5, because I think they've established a big enough world that it would be a pain for them to create something new at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the degree of work that Lauren Faust and the entire team for Gen 4 has put in at this point, and the fandom as it exists currently, it'd be a waste, I think, to throw all that away and completely start over.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wouldn't want to see them just keep going with the same characters, because it wouldn't be Gen 5 at that point. It would be just Gen 4.01.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would be a patch update.
I was going to say a patch update, like League of Legends or something.
Yeah. So if they're going to go Gen 4.5 or even Gen 5, whatever you'd want to call it, it would probably be called 4.5. But I would want to see something significantly down the road in terms of the timeline. So we have this very new and different world, but it's still familiar, and you still have that base audience that'll come over with it.
What'd you think, Cups?
I'm really surprised about the poll results, since right now Aqua's answer is kind of like 3-1 above the next leading two. I'm really surprised that so many of the fans, I guess people who take a poll on EQD, you basically could consider us the hardcore fans of the show. 45% of us are ready to just move on and only have the main six around as cameos.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting to me. It feels like you could have a whole other podcast that's basically just the future of My Little Pony and talk about what that means for 20 minutes. Get a psychoanalyst in here.
I'm pretty sure that could be both a podcast and a panel. You send that panel in.
Maybe it's the Force Awakens effect, to be honest. Maybe it's just people enjoyed Star Wars so much. They're like, I'm ready to see what happened after Rarity lost Canterlot Boutique in a game of poker, and then Kylo Ren flew it into the Death Star. Whatever. Good movie. So
You went like 3 different universes, and you broke my brain for a sec. So you agree with Aqua?
I don't know. Like, what? Let's say that in season 5, Starlight Glimmer is going to be a new main character, a new main cast member of the show.
Mm-hmm.
They could have wanted to. They could call the next season the first season of My Little Pony Explore Equestria. Maybe Explore Equestria is the subtitle of the show for 3 seasons. I don't care. But, this very well could already be season Generation 4.01 if they wanted it to be. So I guess what I'm getting at is is that even a new generation? Maybe it is time to move forward 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I guess I would take the I'm gonna take the selfless route here. I'm gonna say that the people who want the show to stay as it is and not lose the current main six are going to be more hurt by moving forward than the people who want to go to the future will be hurt by not going to the future. And so, the smoothest road possible would just be keep trucking on and go with a season 4.01. Or a generation 4.01. I'm a uniter, not a divider.
That is a very interesting way to look at it. So you just want, like, the most people to basically be satisfied and not disappointed? Because, I mean, it's quite possible that... I mean, even though Faust put all of this work into the show, you know, gave us all of these characters with the show Bible and everything, I'm pretty sure it's possible to have a new main six that's written, you know, at least just as well if they, like, put all of their heads together, assuming that the Generation 4 writers come back for 5, which is, I know, a weird line in the sand to draw, but assuming that they do, you know, it's... I mean, or it could just go the way of Teen Titans Go, which makes everyone cry inside.
That's more like a full reboot is what they did there, and that was, I guess, them remaking some old property that they had a good idea would do well.
Yeah, which has 8% in the current poll that we have. Rebooting the current show.
There's some people who would be in favor of that, and I could see how they would do it well, but one of the reasons that I think the suggestion that I had, and that it's also leading the poll, one of the reasons I think that would work out the best and also would be the most likely option of what's going to happen is that's the one that most directly benefits what I would imagine Hasbro's long-term game plan is. Mm-hmm. Because what you want as a marketer is something that's familiar but different enough that people will buy it again.
Yeah.
The new Star Wars, and without spoiling it too much here, because it's been a while, I assume most people have seen it at this point, but in a general sense, it's very similar in a lot of ways to A New Hope, and that's so people can refamiliarize themselves with it, so they're coming from a familiar base and then extending past that and buying this new thing as well. So what they would want is not a direct continuation, because then you're just continuing the same thing that's on just a natural slow decline like everything does over time. And you don't want to do a complete reboot, because then you don't necessarily get that transition of the old fans into the new IP or the new universe. Mm-hmm. You just maybe get a lot of new fans and maybe a few old ones, but for the most part, the old ones don't have anything familiar to latch onto. What you want is a continuation that ideally gets as many of the old fans to continue watching it, and then also makes it accessible to a new audience who have a starting point they can jump in at. So it's, I guess, the same kind of logic that would come into comic books, where you have the established fans and you have the new fans you're trying to get who may have never read anything at all. And so there's kind of a best of both worlds compromise between all of the old and all of the new, that you get a little bit of both. And I guess you maximize on the graph where how many people you have paying attention to your product.
Assuming that this is the last question, I just really think that it's a neat question. Assuming that we're going to reboot with, like, Future Equestria, do you think they should do the comic book thing where, like, there's a new element of loyalty and it's a different character? Or should they be different elements altogether?
I think you could definitely keep the elements or maybe redefine them a little bit. I think it would cause too many lore issues to say that there's a new element or that the elements themselves have changed. I think having new bearers would definitely be possible.
I think it's possible to say that the elements have changed since we went from... I mean, there's a difference between the Elements of Harmony, like the main 6 group, and then the Elements of Harmony, what they were using for seasons 1 and 2. But...
Well, they've shifted, they've evolved, but they haven't fundamentally changed. Mm-hmm. So there's, like, you mentioned, like, would loyalty be something different? Over the course of every season we've had so far, loyalty is still loyalty, kindness is still kindness. the 6 core elements are still the same. So that's what I would imagine you'd want to stick around with. Other than that, you could go full Power Rangers with it and say, okay, one of them has to be the Red Ranger, one's blue, green, whatever. Other than that, you have free reign to do whatever. That's the kind of thing I could see happening, maybe.
I mean,
where it's an entirely different application of them, but the core elements are still the same.
Isn't that kind of what Transformers does?
Yes, I mean, Hasbro even has experience with that. So, seems like that would be the most natural path for them to take.
And that's a good way to have like a season premiere, a series premiere, is to have whoever your new main 6 is get the physical elements from the Tree of Harmony to stop something that, needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, definitely. Perhaps some cameos from old main 6 or some sort of like lore introduction or anything, Maybe the story about the 2 sisters that we had in the pilot, and now it's a story about the 6 elements of harmony. This is really cool. This needs to be
a really cool callback.
Yeah, this needs to be another podcast.
Same kind of thing, but it's the season 1 premiere.
Yeah, definitely, and just kind of like. Go ahead, Cups.
Is Granny Smith dead? This is very important.
No, they transposed her into the 7th element of harmony.
Yeah, she's the element of never dying.
The element of Rogaine, yeah.
Rogaine?
I mean, all that hair can't be natural.
I think on that note, we need to stop the podcast before it gets more out of control than it already is.
The element of saggy old hips, yes.
Oh my god, okay. I'd like to thank my guests, Cups.
Saggy old hips!
Oh my god, and Aquaman.
And then we have Derpy Hooves, the element of pandering.
Oh my god, okay, we're done. This has been the Equestria Daily Fandom Podcast. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Seriously, it'd be great.